What is going on, Crimson Tide fans? Chris Daughtry here with the Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. And coming up on today's show, this weekend, Alabama got some pretty bad news that I'm sure most of you guys have heard of. We put a short out on it yesterday as well. But it wasn't just all bad news. Alabama might have also got some good news over the weekend as well. So we're going to break all that down here on today's show. Let's start with the bad news first. As most of you guys have probably heard by now, Jam Miller did dislocate his collarbone during Alabama's second scrimmage on Saturday. Still TBD on how long exactly Jam Miller is going to be out for the Crimson Tide, but one little tangent that if I can, I want to go on here. It is kind of irritating. You go all the way back to last year where this Alabama coaching staff, Kalen DeBoer, if there's one thing that irritates me about college football in general is just the complete lack of transparency on some of these injuries. Kalen DeBoer, after that scrimmage on Saturday, came out. He told us that Jaden Roberts had a concussion. He told us that James Smith did not practice, but they're still ramping him up with stuff, but did not mention Jam Miller at all. Probably could have at least give us a heads up, be like, hey, yeah, he got a little bit banged up, but we're still doing some evaluation on him. The Jaden Roberts stuff from last year, they said all year long that, he was in and out because he was hurt, but then they never put him on the injury report throughout the week either. So if there's one thing that I get a little bit irritated about, it is college football and these injury reports. You look at the NFL, they have like 4-5 injury reports every single week. It's no problem putting that out for them. So, I know the SEC trying to get a little bit better at that, but still, this Alabama coaching staff just really isn't very transparent when it comes to these injuries. But that's neither here nor there. It is whatever. So get down in the comments section. If you guys want Jam Miller to have a speedy recovery, get down there and spam your 26s down in the comments section of today's video. So after the report late, I guess it was, late Saturday night, early Saturday morning, technically is what it was. It was the first report was Will Miller of Bama Central ended up putting that out. But then later on Saturday, Kalen DeBoer putting this statement out here saying Jam Miller suffered an upper body injury during Saturday's scrimmage and went in for a procedure on Saturday evening. Jam should recover fully with a timetable for his return yet to be determined. And then later on, Brett McMurphy, now with Rivals / On3, I guess technically the news side of it is On3, giving us a legitimate timeline here for Jam Miller's possible return, saying that Georgia game on September 27th is when they hope he will end up being back, but he's going to miss the first couple of games of the season, Florida State, Wisconsin. He's not going to be out there for those games. But, the good news is Alabama has a very, very deep and loaded running back room, so that should at least, alleviate some of the anxiety for some Alabama fans about Jam Miller's injury. So I want to hear from you guys down at the pinned comment of today's video. Pick a starting running back for me. Who do you think will be running back number one for the Crimson Tide going out there against Florida State? I think all three of these guys could be legitimate options for running back one. Type RY if you want it to be Richard Young, DH if you want it to be Daniel Hill, or DW for Dre Washington. All three guys have gotten a lot of buzz. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the coaching staff to see who is actually going to be that first string running back going out for the first game of the season. And like I said, Alabama's running back room is very loaded right now. This is, definitely an unofficial depth chart as it is right now, because we don't know who is actually going to be Alabama's, second string, third string running back. You've gotten a lot of buzz about Richard Young, in the past, not so much from the coaching staff recently, but I still think it's there. I just kind of think they're hyping up some of the other guys as well. Daniel Hill is a guy that has gotten a ton of buzz from spring, summer, and now fall camp. And then Draylon Washington is a dude that I think a lot of people are forgetting about as well, just because Daniel Hill and Jam Miller have been two guys that, Ryan Grubb in particular has talked about a lot during his press conferences. So, losing Jam Miller really does suck for Alabama. There's no way around that. I was really hoping going into this season, that career stat line there, maybe not, maybe. I think would have been a legitimate stat line for Jam Miller this year, going over 1,000 yards. I think he can definitely get you, 4 or 5 yards a carry as well. But, unfortunately, if you're going to end up missing the first 3-4 games of the season, that stat line probably isn't a legitimate one, unfortunately, this season for Jam Miller. But like I said, Richard Young is a guy that coaching staff hasn't necessarily talked about a ton, but I think a lot of Alabama fans are really hopeful that Richard Young can really break out this season for Alabama. And now, with this unfortunate injury news about Jam Miller, that might be the opening here for Richard Young. So, like I said, Alabama's got a very, very loaded backfield. We're just going to have to wait and find out to see who that bell cow, that lead back for Alabama is going to be for at least the first couple of games of the season. We'll continue here with some good news for Alabama in just a second. But if you guys want this Alabama quarter zip, you can go over to chatsports.com/BamaQTRZip, and you can get that today. It is still on sale, a massive sale, 50% off right now. Was originally $90, now just down to $45. So it is a Columbia quarter zip as well. So if you guys want that, they are going fast right now, and I have no idea how long that sale is going to last. I would assume once the season starts, all that Alabama gear is probably going to go up in price. So you guys can get that deal today just by going to chatsports.com/BamaQTRZip. I'll put that link down at the pinned comment of today's video, as well as the third paragraph of the description of today's video as well. All right, now some good news for Alabama fans. It sounds like Alabama is not quite done yet going after 5-star edge rusher Anthony Tank Jones after he committed to Oregon above both Alabama and Texas A&M just last month. We'll see what happens with Anthony Jones, obviously the number one player in the state of Alabama. This is what Rivals said about Alabama still going out there and pursuing Anthony Tank Jones. They said Oregon surprised some with a win over Alabama and Texas A&M for Mobile St. Paul's Episcopal 5-star edge rusher Anthony Tank Jones earlier this summer. We are hearing that both in-state schools, Alabama and Auburn, will play the slow game and work to get him back on campus for games this fall. Both the Crimson Tide and the Tigers are giving Jones his space. But as the season progresses, we expect staffs from both SEC programs to be in Mobile working to flip him from the Ducks through signing day in December. It shouldn't really be that much of a surprise. He is the number one player from the state of Alabama. So, might at the end of the day be one of those articles that it's like, all right, we got to write something. To me, it's like, yeah, obviously Alabama and I guess Auburn too, but Alabama are definitely going to be continuing to go after the 5-star edge rusher from Mobile. So let me know down in the comments section, will Alabama actually be able to flip Anthony Tank Jones? We know for sure they're going to try to flip him, right? But let me know, do the Crimson Tide flip him? Type Y for yes or N for no down in the comments section of today's video. All right, at 6'4", 260 pounds, the number one player out of the state of Alabama, there's different possibilities, if Alabama were to flip him, what position exactly he would play for the Crimson Tide, possibly the Wolf, possibly some Bandit. I think at the end of the day, if Alabama were to land him, it would really just depend on the need, who goes off to the NFL draft, who possibly hits the transfer portal, just where he could end up playing, because there was some quotes out there from both Tank Jones and his dad out there that he loves the idea of being able to rush the quarterback, but also drop back in coverage as well. So that would be that Wolf position. But at 6'4", 260, I think that's the perfect size for him to kind of go back and forth depending on whatever Kane Womack would possibly want to use him at. And look, at the end of the day, even if Alabama doesn't end up landing Anthony Tank Jones, you still have a very solid defensive line recruiting class here. Jamarian Matthews had a really, really good game the other day in the first week of high school games as well. Saw Brett Greenberg of 247 Sports put some put some videos out on his Twitter, so you guys can go check out some of those videos. Him and Xavier Griffin now on the same team there in Georgia. And then Kamarion Johnson, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think he's super underrated for his size and his speed. I think he's going to shoot up the recruiting rankings here in his senior season. J.J. Finch is another guy that, we'll see how he works out this season. He is very, very low ranked, but look at a guy like London Simmons. He was also ranked somewhere in those 500s of the recruiting rankings coming out of high school. And, Kane Womack said the other day he might be a guy that early on in his freshman year can actually contribute for Alabama. And then Nolan Wilson as well. Top 100 player, number 6 defensive lineman in this class. He was a big, big win for Alabama getting him. We'll see if there's anybody else maybe that Alabama could possibly pursue or flip, or maybe even some new evaluations from guys that, have a really, really good senior season as well. But as of right now, that is Alabama's 2026 defensive line commits, and we'll see if they can make some headway with Anthony Tank Jones.